Okay, this video is going to cover lesson 6.2, which is substitution. Substitution, okay? So substitution, a process for finding the exact solution, all right? Exact solution. So now when we were working with graphing, we have to understand that graphing is only good for an approximate solution. All right, so it's not going to give you the exact answer. It will if it's a nice, pretty, like whole number, but if it's a decimal or a fraction on a graph, you aren't going to be able to tell if it's crossing at, like if it's a decimal or fraction, you wouldn't know if it was like 2.1 or 2.2 or 2.25. So graphs are good to get you an idea of what the picture looks like and an idea of about what the answer should be. But if we want to know exact solutions, especially when decimals and fractions are involved, we have to start using other methods. Now, the one exception to this graphing would be if you're using technology. If you use a graphing calculator or some sort of computer program, then that would get you an exact solution. But since what we're doing is just sketching things by hand here, we're not going to get exact solutions. We're getting about what the answer should be. Okay, so just to kind of review what we were doing, right? When we were graphing these, we would have to solve for y. Okay, so I would divide, right? Divide by 2 here. Remember, there's a 1 in front. So that would be y equals 1/2 x. So now when I come down here and graph that, keeping in mind that your b value is 0. Okay, so I'm going to start at 0 and then 1/2 up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2. So get a few points going there. And then go ahead and draw your line for me. Make it nice and straight as you can. Okay. All right. And then I'm going to switch colors here and I'm going to do the next one now. Now on this one, we're going to be solving for y, right? Still solving for y. So I'm going to start by subtracting that 4x off to the other side. So I have got 2y equals negative 4x plus 10. And then I'm going to go ahead and divide everything by 2. Okay, so I get y equals negative 2x plus 5. Okay, so now when we graph this, we're going to start up at 5, a slope of negative 2, down 2, and then right 1, down 2, right 1. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and draw my line there. Okay, and so I have this crossing right here at that coordinate point, and that coordinate point would be 2, 1, 2, 1. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how do we do this method, but let's do it with substitution. So what I'm going to do is kind of draw a wall here just so we keep a kind of a line break between the two ideas. And I'm going to recopy my equations. X equals 2y and 4x plus 2y equals 10. Okay, so now instead of looking at a picture of it and getting an answer that way, what I'm going to do is show you a mathematical approach to it without using pictures. Okay, so when I look at this, now substitution is exactly what it sounds like. You need to first off have an x equals or a y equals. That's the first thing you need. Okay, so if you have that, fabulous. We're ready to roll right off the bat. And guys, it doesn't matter if it's an x equals or a y equals. As long as you have a variable equal to something else, you're good to go. All right, and so what's going to happen here, since x equals 2y, I'm going to replace my x in this other equation with the 2y. All right, so it's substitution. I am going to replace this guy with this guy right here, just like in any other basketball game or anything like that. I am going to replace or take out the x, and I'm going to substitute that 2y in. So I'm taking player x out, putting player 2y in. Okay, so now when I do that, I'm going to have 4, x is out, right? X is out, and I'm going to put 2y in its place, plus 2y equals 10. Okay, so now I'm going to solve. 8y plus 2y equals 10, or 10y equals 10 when I combine like terms there. So when I divide, I get y equals 1. Okay, so now if I come back over and look at that, look at this over here, look at that. My y value is 1, your y value is 1. Awesome, okay? However, I still have to find this x value, okay? So now let's figure out how we're going to find that x value. So when I'm looking at that x value here, I'm going to take this y equals 1, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug it into either y up here. You can use the first one or the second one. It does not matter which y you put into. Now I'm going to do the top one just because it looks easier. Take and put the y or the 1 in the place of the y, right? I'm substituting again. I'm taking y out of the game and putting a 1 in its position. All right, so then I've got x equals 2, or my coordinate point is 2, 1. And that's my answer. So now if I come over here and look at my graph and compare, I got 2, 1 over here as well. So this is how we do it visually with a graph, and this is substitution, just doing it with the numbers. Okay? All right, so let's try that again, because I know that there's probably some confusion there, so let's try this again. Okay? So again, do I have an x equals or y equals? Yes, I do right there, right? There's my y equals. So I'm going to take this x plus 3, and I'm going to plug it in for the y right there. Okay, I'm substituting. I'm replacing that y. So I'm going to have 2x plus 2, take the y out, and put x plus 3 in its place, equals 38. So now I'm going to distribute. So I get 2x plus 2x plus 6 equals 38. All right, and now we're going to combine our like terms, right? Combine like terms. So I'm going to end up with 4x plus 6 equals 38. Subtract the 6 off, and I end up with 32. And then when I divide by 4, x equals 8. Okay, so there's part of my answer. Now I need the y value. I've got the x value, but I need the y value. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to plug it in for the x. Now again, guys, it doesn't matter if I do the top x or the bottom x. I just am doing this one because it looks easier. Okay, so again, you could plug it into either equation though. So y equals 8 plus 3, or y equals 11. So your answer here is 8, 11. Okay. All right, let's go to number 3. Okay, so now on number 3, I already have a y equals, right? Right off the bat, we've got one. So I already have a y equals. So I'm going to go ahead and take this and plug it in for the y right there. So I get 3x minus 8 equals 4 minus x. Again, I'm just replacing that y with that 3x minus 8. Okay, substituting. Now, guys, we're going to solve this. There's going to be a lot of ways to solve this. Okay, I'm going to start by just adding my x over, but you could have done something different. So 4x minus 8 equals 4. I'm going to add that 8 over to the other side and get 4x equals 12. And so then when I divide, x equals 3. Okay, so now I'm going to take and plug in. Again, it does not matter which equation up here you plug into. So like on this one, I'm going to go ahead and just plug into the bottom because that looks easier. So y equals 4 minus my x value, which is 3, or y equals 1. So my coordinate point here will be 3, 1. And there's my answer. Okay. All right, so now we go to page 2 here. So it's kind of easy do when it's already x equals or y equals, but the question becomes, what the heck when we get an equation and now we don't have an x equals or y equals? So if I'm looking at both 4 and 5, neither one are set up for substitution right away because I don't have an x equals or a y equals, okay? So what do? Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to find the variable with a coefficient. Okay, and coefficient, guys, just remember, that's just a fancy way of saying number in front of a letter or variable. Okay, that's all coefficient is what number's in front of a 1 or a negative 1. So find a variable with a coefficient, so a number in front that's either 1 or negative 1, and isolate it. Or you could say solve it. Same thing. Okay, so isolate or solve. Okay. All right, so now when I'm looking at 4, Okay, my job is to look through and say, okay, well, this x has got a 2 in front. This y's got a 7 in front. This x has a 1 in front, so there's kind of a good guy. And this y has a -4 in front. So the only one that has a coefficient of 1 is this guy right here, okay? So once we find where the 1 is, right, there's a 1 in front right here. We don't have to write it, but it's there, okay? So once we do that, we're going to go ahead and isolate this x, right? We're going to solve for x. So we're going to do that by adding 1 over to the other side. So x equals -4y plus 1. Now, once we've done that, go ahead and kind of get rid of this guy. Don't use him again. All right? He's right here. You still have him. He's just written a little different, and he's right here. Okay? So now I'm going to take, I finally have an x equals, so I'm going to take this, and I'm going to plug it in for the x equals back here. Okay? So I'm going to have a 2, take x out, and put -4y plus 1 in its place, plus 7y equals 3. Distribute that 2 through, so -8y plus 2 plus 7y equals 3. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and combine my like terms. So I'm going to put the -8 and the 7 together and get -1y plus 2 equals 3. Now I'm going to subtract that 2 off and get 1. And then I'm going to divide and get y equals -1. Okay, now that's my y. I still have got to find my x. So now, again, you can plug it in. You can plug it into the top x, or you can plug it in right here to the one that you rewrote. Okay, so when I look at this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, and I think I'm just going to plug it into the bottom one right here because it looks a little easier. So x equals -4. Take y out and put -1 in its place, plus 1. So x equals 4 plus 1, or x equals 5. So your coordinate point here will be 5, -1. Okay. All right, so now let's try it again. So now if I'm looking at this guy, again, I'm looking for a coefficient with a 1 in front. So this x has a 6, that's no good. This y has a -2, that's no good. This y has a 1. Oh, okay, that's the guy I want right there. So I'm going to go ahead and isolate that y, okay, by adding the 3x over to the other side. So I get y equals 3x plus 2. Now this guy is out, and let's take him, and we're going to plug him in for the y. So I get 6x minus 2, take y out, and put 3x plus 2 in its place, equals -4. Okay, so now I'm going to distribute the -2 through. So 6x minus 6x plus, oops, that's not right. How about -4 equals -4. Okay, now I'm going to combine like terms. So when I put these guys together, those are actually going to cancel out. So I have got -4 equals -4. All right, so let's think about that. So if I have the exact same thing on both sides, my answer is going to be infinitely many solutions. So remember, that looks like one line on top of the other, okay? If I were to work this out, though, and get something like, let's say -4 equals 12, all right, that's no good. -4 can't equal 12, so that answer would be no solution. So you're still going to get those IMS and no solution responses when your variables cancel out when you're solving your equation. Okay? All right. And that concludes lesson 6.2 notes.